You felt like we were done here for some reason, that because I had not invited you back in some time, that our lessons had concluded. I will tell you when our lessons have concluded. Yes, you have done surprisingly well. I will admit, you're not yet dead, and some employees of Pentex prize mortality more highly than others. Yes, you have faced the Garou and come out the victor on a few occasions. That is to be commended, but you have not received information, intelligence, and tutelage on every one of the tribes, let alone the changing breeds. So do not get ahead of yourself. I have seen many an arrogant employee run before he can walk. Do bear in mind, these little sessions, they are capsules, they are nuggets of silver ingot. They are not the vast array of weaponry that you will eventually find yourself aware of. To use against the foe, you must eventually experience each tribe, each auspice, each enemy that you can come up against. And once you've encountered them time and time again, survived time and time again, you will develop your own patterns, things that I cannot teach you, things that go on outside of my purview, but there are still many things that you can learn from me, rest assured. Now, the subject of this little session is, of course, a tribe I consider very close to the Red Talons. Do you recall the Red Talons? I described them half as our allies against the other members of the Garou nation. Do you remember that? Now, why was that? The Red Talons, of course, they are chaotic, they are wild. They wish to strike out at human civilization, not to mention the homids of the Garou nation. Some of them are cannibals, some of them are savage beyond control. Where is the similarity between that and the Silver Fangs? Why do I consider the Red Talons similar to the Silver Fangs? The Silver Fangs are obsessed with hierarchy. They wish to keep their place at the top of the pecking order. They want to maintain the throne. The Silver Fangs wish to rule. They are obsessed with domination. They want to command others. Generals from the hilltop commanding armies of Garou against the servants of the worm. The Silver Fangs are very interested in lineage. Not so the Red Talons. The Silver Fangs stem from lupus and homid stock, and they find both fascinating schools of study. Very interested in genetic markers and strengths, eugenics even. Where is the similarity? Recall, again, I said that the Red Talons were our allies. They may not know it, but they are. So is the same for the Silver Fangs. The Silver Fangs may not be uncontrollable beasts. They may not be wolves that stalk the wild. They may appear of great facility, capability, and dangerous method. Yet the Silver Fangs are such a fantastic ticking time bomb waiting in the Garou nation. We do not even need to light the fuse, it is already lit. The Silver Fangs, they, if the Black Spiral Dancer legends are true, triggered the so-called War of Rage that rent the various tribes and changing breeds all those millennia ago. The Silver Fangs, in their hubris, have constantly kept the Bone Gnawers, the Red Talons, the Octina, and other tribes low on the totem pole. The Silver Fangs are going increasingly insane with paranoia, with megalomania. The Silver Fangs are so obsessed with being top of the tree that they do not realize that the entire Garou nation is turning against them. You know, when the head of your flagship, when the captain, seems to be talking to himself, seems more interested in his own family's doings, state of health, than the others on board his ship, The rest of the crew and the passengers both start to doubt that captain's wherewithal. So it is with the Silver Fangs. Alas, it has taken centuries for this to be the case, to become apparent. But the Silver Fangs are more interested nowadays in breeding right, producing the finest warriors, the finest minds, the finest leaders. This male must breed with that female, because 200 years ago it produced this great warlord, as if there is any truth to anything of the like. We have discussed Nazis and eugenics before. Some Garou still believe in that kind of nonsense. I recall one, a Yana... what was her name? She was a Yana Spalechnikova, that was it. A great tyrant of the East. She put the scares into many a black spiral dancer. She was a wild leader, a true warlord, would charge into battle, clave in hand, in homid form no less, only turning into Krynos when necessary. She felt like it was a better symbol to her assorted packs, she was the head of the sept, the true alpha, that she must remain in her weakest possible form, just to show what an adept leader she was. And truly she railed against black spiral dancers, she railed against the skull pigs that were inhabiting Ukraine at the time. In great number, I believe they are still there. You should visit Pripyat. And yet, she died. She fell in battle. Why? Because she retained homid form for a little too long, and eventually a bullet was drilled through her forehead by one of our team. Do the Silver Fangs remember that bit? Do they remember her hubris, her arrogance, the fact that her stupidity led her to her death, when all she had to do was change form and survive a little longer, lead a few more successful sorties? No, they don't remember that. They remember her victories, of which there were a few, and you know what they did? They traced all of her kinfolk, every one of them, every mortal. It turned out that she had several daughters. These daughters were all found. They were of breeding age. I will not tell you what age that was, in case you have any sensibilities that may become offended. But needless to say, it is not what we civilized servants of the worm would necessarily consider right or intellectually capable. The Silver Fangs of the Sept were assured, we need another warrior like her. We need another general like her. We need a reincarnation. And so what did they do to those poor girls? When word of that travelled, of the acts that the Silver Fangs were perpetrating, well, when the Black Furies of the area found out, you can imagine the looks on their doggish faces. When the downtrodden bone gnawers found out, often told, no, you are not good enough to sit at their table, and yet the bone gnawers were quick to find out that their masters were systemic rapists. Do you know what happened? The Silver Fangs were driven out. They became Ronin. The rest of the Silver Fangs of Russia, they disowned this sept. They said, no, they have nothing to do with us. They are rogue, they are errant. And you know what happened? A lot of kinfolk went very, very quiet, very, very quickly. The reason for that is because those Russians realized that if their kinfolk were to speak up and say the same thing is happening to us, good gods help us, there would have been a full-scale revolution. The Silver Fangs snuffed out the talkers before they could talk. And currently their position is safe, but the Shadow Lords, they are very close to finding out. The Silver Fangs, as I say, obsessed with hereditary strengths and weaknesses. They breed true, at least to their mind. But of course, as we know, incest also breeds insanity, and insanity, while it has its uses, is not terribly good when you're trying to command in a war. The Silver Fangs do possess gifts bestowed upon them by their falcon that allows them to command with ease. I recall Baptiste, the head of PR here, told me once of a Silver Fang in New Mexico who was able to take on an entire sheen of silver. He became a rolling ball, fusing a weapon. Can you imagine a solid silver fang tearing through black spiral dancers as if they were butter? Terrifying, no? Fortunately, we are not black spiral dancers, and silver, well, silver can be combated. Better is the fact that other tribes do not trust such gifts. After all, silver is an anathema to them just as much as it is to black spirals. They do not trust a Silver Fang that they know was responsible, way back when, for causing the greatest rent in Garou society when they become the greatest weapon to use against their fellows. Think on it. Why are the Silver Fangs our allies without knowing it? Because they grow increasingly decrepit. They are scored with dementia. So many of their oldest are still in charge, where other werewolves will be put out to pasture, walk out into the snow to save their pack the unpleasantness of putting down an elder who doesn't know when his time is up. They will carry on leading. They will continue to command. They will continue to hold the throne until they are babbling insanities with enough power, their gifts channeling those insanities, to make their pacts, their septs, their fellows do the most ridiculous of things. And all we have to do is watch and think, is this playing in some grand plan, or is it in fact just the Silver Fangs losing control again? Here is the trick. The Silver Fangs cannot lose control. We cannot allow it. For as long as the Silver Fangs dominate Garou society, they are on the back foot. The Shadow Lords are capable. If the Shadow Lords take the Garou nation, that does not bear thinking about. But the Silver Fangs, allow them their incest, their insanity. Yes, they are fine warriors. Yes, they are fine commanders. Yes, they have proved it time and time again. But the worm is winning. Why? Because the Silver Fangs are running their own race into ruin. They must stay in charge. When you find a territory where the Silver Fang holds sway, you take out the Shadow Lords, you take out the Glass Walkers, you allow the Silver Fang to retain control, and you attempt to make it look like the Silver Fang has tried to punish some up-and-comers. You make other Garou doubt them, but you shore up their position. The Silver Fangs are no threat to us, but they are a great threat to other werewolves.